there's like infinite possibilities in the ways in which you can take skills that you already have just by kind of thinking about how can I apply that so that I'm achieving this ultimate goal: better, cleaner, healthier communities. I think there are many pathways that you can follow if you want to get into a sustainability career. I mean, if I take my own example, for instance, my initial degrees are in engineering and none of them necessarily environmental engineering. You could probably even get on that pathway starting immediately, using whatever skills you currently have in the right environment, right? So working with an organization with a sustainability focus. Just in the same way that there are many pathways to get into this field, there are many ways in which you can achieve the crux, the goal of sustainability. And so one way I kind of do it is I often ask myself, how can I contribute to a healthier community, a healthier environment? If my area is in law or policy, well, oh my gosh, there's so many ways in which you can help influence, guide, write, shape policies that lead to healthier communities. Marketing is another key word because let's think about it. It's a lot about communicating. How do we help people understand these complex ideas in ways that make them realize, one, that it's possible by little changes that they can in fact make a difference. Maybe your area is in business, right? How do we think about ways in which people see the economical values of engaging in more sustainable practices, for instance? I really, honestly, there's like infinite possibilities in the ways in which you can take skills that you already have just by kind of thinking about how can I apply that so that I'm achieving this ultimate goal: better, cleaner, healthier communities. However, once you get going, you want to master that craft. And having much more specialized information is going to really help you be much more efficient, more effective in that role. There are so many ways in which you can make an impact in sustainability. But we're going to focus on 4 possible pathways in this particular video: food and water systems, ecology and conservation, environmental justice and policy, and corporate sustainability. When we talk about food and water, that is a complex system. And there are many stakeholders that really influence what can come from it, right? The sustainable practices that can be driven in these areas. I mean, let's just start with the government, right? That's a key partner in this whole process. And they really help to shape and set the tone in terms of the management of resources and the policies that drive the way those resources are being utilized. Then let's think about the private sector, right? So they drive a lot of that work, maybe in terms of agriculture or farming, the supply chain. And so really thinking about how can we bring sustainable practices into all of those different areas. Other possibilities for the ways that we can address this issue. And then nonprofits are always critical because they kind of cover all the gaps, and there are lots of gaps, right? So we think about access to clean water, or we think about dealing with hunger. I mean, with all the food we still have, there are so many places that still don't have. And so the nonprofits are critical because they really cover all the gaps that sometimes get formed, even when you have the big players like the government and the private sector. So when I think about the careers in ecology and conservation, I kind of like to start big picture. So I start from the ecologist perspective. And in this area, you're really beginning to understand the complexity of these ecosystems. What's unique about them? Where are the pressure points? Where are the challenges? And often I can almost break that into sort of 3 key areas, right? How do we continue to develop these systems well? How do we conserve what already exists? And then often what we find is how do we remediate? Because there are challenges. Sometimes we didn't do these things in very thoughtful ways. And there are problems now and we need to remediate. And so when we think about those 3 areas, let's probably start with conservation, because how do we protect what we already have and make sure we continue to propagate in effective ways? So your conservation becomes another key area of that work. And so folks who can support from your park rangers to your folks that work in the forestry areas, just how do we understand and conserve these precious resources? Then you can have your more specialized folks who may help in that furthering development and the remediation aspect. So from folks who might work from engineers or folks who help in waste management, how do we begin to kind of utilize very specialized skills in support of further development and remediation? When I think about environmental justice and policy, I kind of like to start this conversation really thinking about those at the level that are most impacted. I think at the core of really being able to be impactful in that space is, first of all, getting to understand what are the needs, what are the issues at that core level. And so here, the grassroots level kinds of organizations are critical because they are the folks who are on the ground, working with communities, really understanding the different ways in which our marginalized communities are really facing the burdens of this environmental injustice. And then, of course, we're talking about, again, justice. So how do we now advocate for policies that change this dynamic? And so we need a lot of folks, again, in advocating as well as in policy making. And so from the grassroots to your advocation to your policy development, all of these entities work together to really ensure that the voice and the needs of those who are often most impacted, often with the least amount of political power and economical power, their ideas, their needs are heard and elevated. Corporate sustainability is a really interesting field. When I think about corporate sustainability, I think about this interesting relationship that exists between corporations and our growing consumer population that's becoming very informed both about social issues and environmental issues, not just in terms of how it affects each of us as an individual, but also being aware about the impact on others who sometimes are far removed from them. And so I say it's very responsive kind of relationship because the consumers now have the ability to hold a lot of corporations accountable for the work they do and how they do that. And so when we think about this interesting relationship, there are amazing careers in sustainability that now emerge to support the way this relationship develops. So from your folks who work directly with the corporations in collecting information so that they can report on a very accurate way the ways in which their work is having an impact both socially and environmentally. Your analysts who then take that data and produce the significant meaning from that information. And then from the folks who continue to maintain these relationships with the consumer, right? So from communications to just, your consultants who continue to navigate those courses and help keep our corporations accountable for the impact that they are making on our society. Programs like MESH are really impactful in the way that they amplify someone's ability to really make meaningful contributions in this area. For one, the program is led by practitioners, people who work in all of these various industries, from food and water to ecology and conservation to environmental justice to corporate sustainability. MESH consists of faculty who are practitioners in each of these areas. So they know what it's like. And not just practitioners, let's say, in government, but I mean in government, in private sector, on the grassroots level. So they really understand what this work is. They have vast levels of experience. And as a student, you are now put in access to all this rich, dynamic knowledge. In addition to being also part of a community of other like-minded folks who are pursuing similar passions and pathways. Again, just the right ingredients to amplify your impact. You are now beginning to gain much more specialized training that allows you to be so much more effective in whatever pathway in sustainability you may choose to do. And I'd add another key part of it, because the truth is, in order to really be effective in this area, you also have to come in with this mindset that I have to be innovative, I have to be creative, because we are dealing with problems that in many cases have not existed before. And so it's hard to fully prepare yourself for solving a problem you don't even know exists. And what programs like MESH do is really equip students with that confidence, that ability, that mindset that they can, if they apply those creative, innovative ways of thinking, plus with this richness of diverse understandings of these various sectors, to really make a significant impact. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any further questions about sustainability, we'd love to continue this conversation in the comments section, or you can reach us at mesh@sandiego.edu. We'd be happy to help you start your career journey in this field.